We're here at CES 2017 and just wrapped up a meeting with Zotac, who are displaying some pretty interesting products this year. But before we move on, quick message from our sponsor.
Big thanks to NVIDIA, Gigabyte, Fantex, and NCIX for our CES coverage.
The one item that really caught our eye was their new GTX 1080 Mini, which is supposed to be the smallest, most compact GTX 1080 on the planet. I mean, just look at it. It is meant to be perfect for smaller ITX cases that won't fit a traditionally sized GPU, but are still capable of accepting a higher-end graphics processor. This certainly isn't the first of Zotac's mini-series we have looked at, but it is certainly the most powerful by a long shot. Specifications are very close to reference, with a base clock of 1620 MHz and boost going to 1759 MHz. Meanwhile, the GDDR5X is clocked at 10 GHz. That's all understandable given the fact that the GTX 1080 Mini uses a smaller cooler to keep with its compact size, so high out-of-the-box overclocks when possible. Zotac did mention that it still does have some good manual overclocking potential provided your system is well cooled enough. You can also see that Zotac installed two different size fans on this card, one 90mm for static pressure while the other one is 100mm that is used for additional air movement. There are also dual copper heat pipes that ensure an adequate amount of heat movement away from the core. Zotac's pricing for this card wasn't announced, but expected to be the same amount as entry-level GTX 1080 cards. There are three things that are being highlighted by many companies who are visiting this year at CES: VR, mini PCs like Zotac's own ZBox, and external graphics docks. Naturally, Zotac was showing off one too, and it looks pretty interesting even though this is a hand-built sample. Graphics docks are all the rage since USB 3.1 Gen 2 and Thunderbolt 3 have allowed for high bandwidth, high power connections between today's compact notebooks and external devices. Zotac's intent for this dock is for it to be connected to a low-power, all-in-one or notebook and provide massive graphics horsepower. But will a low-voltage notebook CPU be enough to avoid bottlenecking something like a GTX 1080? We'll find out soon after CES, but first, onto the dock. This external dock is meant to communicate with the device via a Thunderbolt 3 connection, which it could if a device supports it. It's also used to power an external low-voltage device. Speaking of the graphics card, Zotac isn't going to be including one, but it is supposed to support up to 400-watt discrete cards. Zotac has also thought ahead by giving their docks some additional functionality and incorporating 3 USB 3.0 ports and 1 Quick Charge 3.0 USB port. Unfortunately, pricing and a time frame for widespread availability wasn't discussed, but we'll make sure to keep on top of this while development progresses. That graphics card dock may be a perfect fit for some of Zotac's updated ZBox, which now has its full lineup refreshed with Kaby Lake processors. That switch also made the possibility of an inclusion of Thunderbolt 3, which also adds a lot more functionality and will also allow the connection of additional high-power external devices. So that wraps up things at Zotac. I'm Ivo with Hara Canucks. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next CES video.